we're almost done here in Asia Pacific for today's Grandmasters matches, but we have one more to send you off with before you go over to Europe to see all the goodness that's happening there, to see Hunter Race playing in the first game of the day, I believe, up against Swids. But before we get into all of that, the match we do have coming up is the Lone Druid this week in Asia Pacific, up against the Mage from Glory. As you can see here, SamuelTsao bringing the Druid. Hasn't been looking all too strong so far, but this could be a turnaround. Do you think this is a good matchup against Mage, or is he still in a bit of a rough spot?
We can clearly see that his deck is very built towards the Mage with running the Fairy Dragon, and there's a lot of mech stuff on curve that he can put a lot of pressure with, but Token Druid has not shown a lot of good performance, so I'm still a bit curious if it is good, but I think it has also a lot of potential versus the Mage, and if he manages to get an aggressive hand and a good early game, he might be in a very good position to take a victory here.
Yeah, I think this could work a little bit better against the Mage because one of the big omissions from the deck is the Whispering Woods, a card that against the Mage can open them up to just like freezing your board, playing Sea Giant. I think the curving out with magnetizing mechs is generally a much stronger plan that this deck can go for against the Mage. On the other side, however, for Glory, this looks like a very, very standard Mage, pretty much about as bog standard as you can get. The only card he's really missing in this match that I think you'd like to see is the Rabble Bouncers. Everything else just looks pretty good.
Yeah, just a very standard build from Glory here. Not anything special. He's just running the Mage deck that I would say is just hedged towards most of the decks. So he just has a good shot versus everything and isn't trying to target anything specific.
Yes, and I think that's generally just very strong in Mage, right? Because that's one of the main reasons why I think Mage has been not necessarily so widely represented, but so powerful, especially as we saw in Masters Tour Vegas, where it was how many percentage points better performing over the second deck? It was like 16% better or something.
It wasn't 16%
How much was it?
better. That's a lot of percentage better.
Okay.
It was 6% better, which is
I
a lot of
that.
percentages better already. But
I thought I remembered you saying 16. I remember the 6-bit.
Yeah, it was 6% better performing than what I actually believe was Druid.
Really? As the second best deck?
As the second best deck, yeah. So,
well, I mean, we have both of those here, right? The Druid and the Mage, the two best performing decks, I suppose, from Masters Tour Vegas. The Druid is a bit of an outlier because there were very few games
yes,
played.
very few Druids. So it was a bit of an outlier while there were quite a lot of Mages. And we also saw that a lot of the Mages got into the top 8 and also ended up winning the tournament. So
they did indeed.
A very good performing deck there. And here we see SamuelTsao on the coin, very important in this matchup due to Mage being very happy with the coin. At the same time, he also wants to mulligan for an early aggression start, I imagine. So what do you think you keep?
Well, I mean, just at the very least, I was going to say the 1-drop, 2-drop, right? It's a curve that he can just go for to try and tempo out the Mage early on, which I think is, in a lot of ways, exactly what he's looking to do. Because his deck doesn't have quite so many ways to go super wide without the Whispering Woods in there. But I think the curve plan is generally his strongest way of winning the game.
I agree. And I like the keep from SamuelTsao. He has the Mecha into the Power of the Wild in worst case, no matter what he draws. And I assume he's looking to just curve this out. He might be considering already to coin the Fairy Dragon.
That's what I'm looking at.
But there's also a lot of consideration just playing the curve. There's no real big punish to going the Mecha here, I think. And I don't think there's a very big reward for going the Fairy Dragon.
Really?
Because in the case of Sorcerer Apprentice, it's actually better to have the Mecha out, because if you go coin Fairy Dragon, the Sorcerer Apprentice directly trades the
That's
Fairy
fair.
Dragon.
That's fair. Okay, so if that's the punish, but then we're getting into really like confusing territory because
also just the Mana Cyclone. I think that all the 2-drops from Glory pairs up better versus the Fairy Dragon.
But the upside, I think, you say there's not much upside. I would argue that there's a lot of upside. I think sticking a Fairy Dragon here is insane. Like the amount of aggression that he starts to push forward is so much higher than the Mecha.
Well, let's say I guess there's the upside with staking the Fairy Dragon. Also, if Glory does not have any place and just picks, he doesn't get a pink target, which would have been the Mecha route. Also, SamuelTsao does use the coin, which is potentially a big deal, but he gets very rewarded by Glory not having any potential way to deal with the Fairy Dragon. Also, to be said, if Glory had the Mana Cyclone, for example, SamuelTsao could have Power of the Wild for buff and made the Fairy Dragon out of
It's something to consider.
Monosaki.
Probably not great.
Yeah. And SamuelTsao getting super rewarded here. He is just curving out pretty solidly. Now we can buff up the Fairy Dragon and do a value trade with it,
Yep.
which makes it still impossible to ping it out. So I imagine that is what he's going to go for.
Yeah, with no magic dart frogs in Glory's deck lists, which we have seen floating around from some of the players in Grandmasters, it's going to make it very, very difficult indeed to kill off this
The
Fairy
frog
Dragon.
always clears.
Sure.
I just wanted to...
Just to remind me.
just remind you,
Yeah.
And SamuelTsao are just looking in a prime position. Glory playing very from behind and having to go for the Sandbinder here, which is a very slow play, but he just has to get additional resources and getting the Cycle, and he could potentially get some random spells that can get him out of this bad position.
They could do.
I imagine that SamuelTsao would just keep the pressure going here, playing Mecha Root together with a Blessing of the Ancients.
I agree.
And then maybe doing a value trade to protect his Fairy Dragon and go face with Fairy Dragon.
That seems reasonable. He's still getting a good amount of damage in, right? And also, if he doesn't clear the Sandbinder, he's running into territory of Conjurer's Calling, potentially being a pretty big punish to him, especially if there's a Khadgar as well.
Yeah, also the Sandbinder just clearing the Fairy Dragon.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's also a possibility.
And I imagine he's going to use the... There's no reason for hand size in this deck, so yeah, just using this one seems better. And he really wanted to go face, but it looks like he's redeciding to go for the trade here to protect his Fairy Dragon, which is a incredibly strong minion because there's no way for mages currently built to deal with it.
It's literally only Ziliax that could answer it here.
Oh yeah, the Ciliax. I guess that is a very good big consideration actually when you say it. The Ciliax does clean it.
Do you think that would incentivize him to go face more?
Yes. But there is no Ciliax, so making the trade is getting very rewarded. Now Glory is currently, although this is also was potentially a punish, with Glory now not able to go Mirror Image and the Giant. If he would have had the Sandbinder on board, he could have went Mirror Image together with the Giant. And I don't think Glory was looking for either of these spells. I think he was looking for a cheap spell to pair together with the Cyclone.
I think you're probably right.
And not too happy about seeing any of these.
I guess probably Results is the best one. Just because it's just board presence he can throw down.
Yeah, he could potentially spawn the Dark Shrug we was talking about earlier. Clear the board.
Which always clears.
Always clears the board. And he's going for it. Will he pick up the Dark Frog? He did not pick up the Dark Frog. So he does not clear the board.
He does not. I mean, it's mainly just a little bit of an annoyance to SamuelTsao.
More reasonably, he could have picked up double Bluegill Warrior, which would have cleared the board.
Or Hench Clan Hogsteed.
Which would have been even better.
That would have been insane.
Is he just dead?
I don't think he's quite dead.
He is just dead.
Oh no, he is actually literally just dead. For exactly
And Tucker here takes the W. Mage.
And the Coin Fairy Dragon that came down on turn 1 lived right until the end of the game as a 7 attack minion right there.
It would have lived no matter what, I think. But he got a lot of more pressure with the way line he took. It might have been the better line, Derek. I'm not a very experienced
Hearthstone player.
So I'm a caster. So I'm not as good at the game.
Oof. I'll pretend I didn't hear that one. As it does mean that now SamuelTsao is 1-0 up with the Druid. He's looking to be in a pretty good spot, I think.
That was pretty convincing, not gonna lie. Glory didn't seem to have a chance there.
Yep.
And SamuelTsao only one win away now from taking a victory versus Glory. And Glory at a 7-2 score? 7-1 score? 7-1? 7-2?
7-2. 7-2 for Glory, 2-7 for SamuelTsao.
Yeah, so SamuelTsao on the brink of elimination, if not already eliminated.
From playoffs potential.
Yes. Trying to claw back and give himself some potential to qualify still.
Yeah, even in the best case example, when he goes 7-7 now, it's still unlikely, I think, that he would be qualifying through.
It seems very unlikely. I believe that he is also in the group where there's 3 people right now with 7 wins or more.
You could be correct. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yes. So if it's even possible, I think it's almost impossible.
Right.
So SamuelTsao just trying to get as many wins as possible here to get himself into a good position for Season 2. And also Glory just trying to secure himself a safe position for the playoffs, because he's super close now, but there's a lot of players in this division doing very well. So even though he's currently at a 7-2 score, he's not close to safe yet. So he has to get all the wins he can get.
Yeah, not to mention as well, there's a monetary reward for every win that you pick up in Hearthstone Grandmasters, which always incentivizes these players, even at the lower score lines, to get those wins on the table.
Yeah, correct.
But for Glory here, in terms of the decks he can switch to, it gets kind of interesting actually, because he has a tertiary deck that is pretty clearly anti-rogue teched, I would say, with the Snip Snaps, Rabble Bouncers, and Halftime Scavengers. But I guess it's some kind of collateral damage. It's not that bad against the Druid.
And yes, you're correct. It's not that bad versus the Druid, yeah. It has the Halftime Scavengers, which is very good because it's just a hard minion to react to for the Druid,
yep.
and it makes so the Conjurer's Calling always get the target, and also the Rabble Bouncer are just very good. It's actually a very solid. It might actually be better versus the Druid than it is versus the Rogue.
I mean, the cards that he's losing are not that bad, even though we saw, ironically enough, Banana Buffoon and Sandbinder as the two of the few cards he actually played that game. I think they're not all too sad to be getting rid of. The Sea Giant feels like the really sad card to be getting rid of, because we've seen quite a few times against Token Druid that one of the big win conditions for Mage is the Druid goes too wide, you play Sea Giant plus Frost Nova, and you push for a counter lethal.
Well, but now that he has double Rabble Bouncer, I don't think that having the double Bouncer plus a double Sea Giant is necessarily relevant, because that leads you kind of way too committed into the one game plan of your opponent going wide. So in that case, SamuelTsao can respond to that and decide to not go so wide and just try to put pressure on with a few minions and make Glory's general game plan just weaker.
I think we will definitely continue to see that, as a lot of the magnetization is available in this Druid deck. Once again, it's super mech heavy, with both Replicating Menace and obviously Snip Snap being run in there, in addition to some of the other mechs like Explodinator, which definitely seems to be like the real weakness for Glory at the moment, because even with the Rabble Bouncers, as you said, they're generally very good against the Whispering Woods boards. SamuelTsao is not running Whispering Woods, so he's instead, I think, going to be relying much more on small boards of tall minions to get the win here.
Yes, and SamuelTsao, again, on the coin. Very important for him here. Being able to put on a bit of extra pressure, potentially coining a Fairy Dragon again, and Glory just not having the coin. Very powerful. But SamuelTsao with a very burn-heavy hand, and I don't think that is what he wants. I think he wants that keeping on pressure all the time hand.
I fully agree. I think this is a pretty dreadful starting hand for SamuelTsao. Glory, of course, does not know that, which means if he could see SamuelTsao's hand, I think he might quite happily not pick the research project, because he really, really, really does not want to give SamuelTsao cards.
But he doesn't know.
Of course, he doesn't know that, exactly.
So he decides to pick the research project because he thinks that on average his card draw is way more valuable than SamuelTsao's card draw.
Which I think on average is correct.
Yes. It's still not a very obvious pick or anything, but it's something that Glory is valuing a lot here, especially with his current hand, which was Giant plus the Conjurer's Calling, right? And if you don't have any cards, then it's just hard to get value of it.
Yeah. I mean, as it currently stands, Glory's hand is actually looking pretty well poised to take the game. SamuelTsao still has an absolutely miserable hand. Like, he's picked up every single bad card in the matchup.
Well, they're good cards if he has a board.
Right.
He just happens to not have a board right now. And Glory just tempoing out the cat card.
I've got to be honest, I wasn't really thinking about this turn from Glory. I was fully expecting Ping Pass.
I was fully expecting Ping Pass also. I'm very curious.
Because it's not even like the Druid has no answers. It obviously has Coin Swipe. I think Glory would be okay with that. But Samuel just played a Lackey, right?
I think that Glory is trying to beat SamuelTsao into developing some minions there, and then he gets the Rabble Bouncer out. But
unless SamuelTsao develops minions, Glory doesn't have anything to Conjurer's Calling next turn, right?
I'm not sure. This is a very, very interesting play. Because Yeah, there's just nothing the Conjure's calling. Just uses the Savage. Paying a lot of respect. Maybe this was the good outcome for Glory. SamuelTsao just respecting the Khadgar and...
I mean, it's not the bad outcome, right? Because the bad outcome
I think this was the good outcome. I think this
was
was
Kobold Lackey.
I think this was... Oh yeah, that was also a bad outcome. But I think what Glory was hoping for was that SamuelTsao just took a turn to be reactive rather than developing anything.
It does mean, of course, that he used a card, so Mountain Giant is a little bit further away from being playable, but with the way the math works out, he can still play it on turn 5, whether he threw down the Khadgar or not.
Yes. And SamuelTsao with a couple of options.
It's actually not all too far off from being able to play Crystal Song Portal for
yeah,
the 3 minions.
He could actually do that next turn if he wants to.
Probably Landscaping, I think, is the more likely pick.
Yes. I would also assume he picks Landscaping here. He has a lot of buffs in his hand and just spreading a bit wide here and setting up the buffs. I also think that he will prefer to play the Microtech controller this turn, potentially setting up for double blessing of the Angels in the upcoming turn, which will be extremely strong.
That makes sense to me. He needs to be afraid of Rabble Bouncer.
Well, I don't think it's that weak to Rabble Bouncer.
Right. Yeah, in terms of just doing the math.
We could just double blessing of the Ancients and value trade twice into the Rabble Bouncer. But he decides to go for the landscape.
Do you still think you would have preferred the Microtech?
This is very reasonable too. It makes it so that Glory can't fit in the ping together with the Rabble Bouncer.
Which would have cleared up the 2-1.
Yes, which would have cleared up the 2-1. So SamuelTsao is just paying a lot of respect to the Rabble Bouncer, and this play is just better versus the Rabble Bouncer. So it makes a lot of sense, actually.
Does not mean that SamuelTsao is obviously going to be very afraid of Conjurer's Calling. But actually, having said that, how afraid will he be of Conjurer's Calling? Glory tempoed out a Khadgar. And that's always got to make you think, my opponent doesn't have the Conjurer's Calling, right? Because if he did, why on earth would he tempo the Khadgar?
Well, he did tempo the Khadgar with the Conjurer's Calling.
Exactly, right? So maybe from Glory, this was a bait to make SamuelTsao think he didn't have the Conjurer's Calling.
Giga Brain.
Yeah, that's some Galaxy Brain plays right there.
Yeah, and maybe SamuelTsao just
it might work.
Ignores. He just goes for the Microtech controller, spreads wide. And he does not do that though. He decides to just deal with the Giant. This is his second Savager, by the way.
That's true.
So this is significantly weakening his burn. And he's also deciding to take the damage rather than making the trade with the force.
And it's not like damage is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not completely irrelevant. I think that Glory here could respond with a pretty clean Rabble Bouncer into... Oh, there's actually with the Cyclone, there's actually...
Yeah, this gets a lot more interesting.
What initial thought was that you just Rabble Bouncer and you Conjurer's Calling it together, because now we're not afraid of burn ranges at all because of the double Savager already used by SamuelTsao. But having the Sorcerer Parent and the Mana Cyclone gives you some other options, but I still think that the play is probably the Rabble Bouncer Conjurer's Calling. I think that that is just the strongest play overall. He could also go for Mountain Giant plus the Ray of Frost, but I would rather just get out the Rabble Bouncer and the Conjurer's Calling now that I can and save the Giant for later. I think
that makes sense to me.
But he's going for the Giant plus Ray of Frost. Well, he's not even playing Ray of Frost. That's also fine. It's just board commitment and just trying to make SamuelTsao respond. But I mean, one of the issues with this play is that if SamuelTsao decides to clear the Giant and doesn't commit too many things to the board anymore, the Rabble Bouncers could be a bit worse.
I mean, but the Rabble Bouncers could be a bit worse, but then he just goes off with the Sorcerer's Apprentice Mana Cycling plan, right? And if SamuelTsao develops nothing, Glory's pretty happy with the outcome, right? Because, I mean, he could just play a Rabble Bouncer then for 7 mana. That's not that bad. If SamuelTsao develops nothing, which seems very unlikely.
Yeah, he's just forcing SamuelTsao to make a decision if he wants to clear this or not. I think that, I mean, obviously, Rabble Bouncer plus Conjurer's Calling was more pressure, but this is forcing SamuelTsao to make a decision on the Conjurer's Calling or not, which the Rabble Bouncer play didn't do. With the Rabble Bouncer play, SamuelTsao could have just made a decision to just go face.
True.
And ignore the minions, but now he has to either go face and ignore the Giant and be very weak to Conjurer's Calling, or he responds to the Giant and then she's very weak in general. So he decides to still pay respect to the Conjurer's Calling here. which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, some amount of respect to Rabble Bouncer as well, making sure his board is not too wide. Or, as another Mana Cyclone here means that Glory could go off with a pretty powerful turn, should he want to miss out on the Rabble Bouncers.
But then he's going into territory where the Rabble Bouncer, we're like making plays that make the Rabble Bouncer consistently worse.
Yes, yeah.
We could also go Rabble Bouncer, Conch Calling, and then Ray of Frost. I think that is a very strong play here.
Because after Glory has seen the Rabble Bouncer and the Conjurer's Calling, sorry, after SamuelTsao has seen that, sorry, maybe he'll be more willing to not play around it, which means Glory can hit him with the second Rabble Bouncer.
I also think it's just a very solid play to just contest the board here.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of consideration of going for the Sorcerer Apprentice plus the spells and the Cyclone. But yeah, it just depends a bit. I don't know.
It's still super interesting to consider the implications that Khadgar has had on this game in terms of being played early by SamuelTsao, because obviously he would have had much stronger Conjurer's Calling plays now, but he wouldn't have baited out the Savage.
Glory could also pick up additional 1 or 0 mana spells to get more spells from the second Cyclone, but he doesn't pick up anything.
Those aren't bad cards though.
Yes, and he is contesting the board pretty well here. SamuelTsao with the swipe though is able to clear up quite a lot of the board and also buff his board again with Blessing of Agents. And
so does he go for that, or does he start pushing like for damage to face, right? Because if we were to see double Snip Snap on this turn and push everything face, like double swipe, and even with the Blessing of Ancients, is getting pretty close to lethal. He's also getting pretty close to dying to just a single Frost Nova, however, from Glory.
yes, and Glory has had 3 cards in his hand for a long time now, I believe.
Yeah.
So SamuelTsao could potentially start getting some ideas of what that is. Yeah, he also has the Snip Snap pair that he can pair together with his current mix and clear off the board that way and just save his swipes.
Yeah. I think all things considered, like even though he could start looking at a more aggressive plan, I think the trading route, it just makes him so much safer against either a Frost Nova from the deck or a randomly generated one.
Okay, so now he's considering if he wants to make the trade or if he wants to push the face damage. There's a lot of value in making the trade, but 4 damage is a lot. So he decides to go for the face damage. And maybe there's a very good play from Glory here, because now he can spawn potentially more minions that is on the board by killing off the Snip Snaps.
Ah, good point.
It's a pretty complicated turn.
So how many minions would it summon when it dies? It's only 2, right? Because there's only 1 Snip Snap attached.
I wonder.
He could potentially go Frostbolt on the tree, and then he can Rabble Bouncer, and then Conch Calling the Rabble Bouncer, and then he can make 2 value trades. There's like a potential play.
That seems pretty good actually.
He could also go Rabble Bouncer, and then just keep the Rabble Bouncer. It might be that he values the Rabble Bouncer pretty high.
I think I preferred your play.
I preferred my play too.
Did it definitely work? Because Frostbolt would have effectively cost 1 mana, right?
Yes.
So he would have been able to do it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was just better. Because now he's actually taking a lot of damage from Blessing of Ancients here.
Well, yeah, I mean, the board power right now is a bit stronger, but isn't that much stronger. We also just deal with more minions, right? And just play your mana more efficiently. Now we have to...
This is such a close position.
It was just more efficient mana-wise.
It was just worse this way, yeah.
Well, unless you want to save the Frostbolt.
But I mean, what could be better than that, right? You're killing a 3/3, which is a pretty prime target, and getting a lot of extra defense.
Yeah, I think you should have done that. In this position, though, now SamuelTsao can for real start looking at the face game planner.
Right, exactly. But
I guess that is a consideration for not using Frost, but maybe that the Frostbolt might matter in a counter-lethal push, right?
That's true. I just think this is more likely to get there with the counter-lethal push, right? Because it gets more damage off the board, which means you have more time to push your counter-lethal forward.
Yes. I don't know.
It's not strictly wrong at all.
SamuelTsao could push a lot of damage there. He can he just set up Lethal, actually? He could potentially set up Lethal. And Glory only running 1 Frostbolt.
Yeah, I mean...
How much does he need to get the Lethal?
All he needs to be afraid of...
Oh, it might be that he can actually...
...is Frost Nova.
He's going.
He's setting up lethal with double swipe is the game plan.
He's setting up more than lethal, right? He's setting up lethal versus the Celiacs also. So yeah, that is basically what he's doing. And the frostbolt isn't enough here. So it might be that he has to go for a charge out. Is there any way he could gain damage here?
I mean, I don't think there's any charges on the 7 mana slot, unless I'm mistaken.
Like the 7 mana minions here were pretty unfortunate for him. These are understated 7 mana minions.
I don't
so
think they're that bad.
they're 5 attack, right?
Yeah,
they could
yeah,
have more
yeah,
attack,
yeah.
and that would have represented higher likelihood of lethal. Would Banana Buffoon be lethal here? If he had Banana Buffoon, he would have 5 damage, 5 damage. Banana Buffoon would have been lethal.
He would have been 1 mana off, I think,
Would
from using all of it.
No.
Oh no, it would have been exact lethal. Yeah, it would have been exactly lethal.
It would have been exact lethal, yes.
Ziliax is picked up here.
So
Has the ability to gain some
This
life.
was not like an entirely safe play by SamuelTsao.
There would, of course, had to have been a randomly generated Frostbolt, though. Oh, no, wait, because he runs a Frostbolt in his deck.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was not 100% safe from SamuelTsao, but I think given that the alternative is he dies to counter pressure with Frost Nova, I think it was pretty reasonable there to go for the out of just pushing for lethal, and it does work out for
And
him. at the
SamuelTsao
end.
gets the win with the Token Druid, which is impressive. Token Druid is a deck that has been performing that well, and taking a win now for SamuelTsao, pretty important for him.
Yeah, and I think this is a pretty innovative build of the Token Druid compared to a lot of the ones we've seen that have run both the Whispering Woods and the Curve package. This one I think is a very interesting direction to take the deck, where you just go for the mech package. You're just trying to burn out your opponent by tempoing out minions, by magnetizing them on, and going for a smaller board of bigger minions rather than a wide board of 1/1s, which I think is going to be pretty good against Mage, because as we saw, even though Glory could have gone for situations where he made his Rabble Bouncers a little bit better, I think... I don't know, it just feels like for SamuelTsao, he built a deck that was very, very strong against the Rabble Bouncers.
Yeah, it's just stronger versus the Mage in general, because you go taller and not wider, and especially versus how the games panned out, where Glory didn't draw too much of the high power cards versus the single target minions, like the Ray of Frost together with Sorcerer Apprentice, but he drew the Rabble Bouncers and stuff like that. SamuelTsao managing to just keep the board fairly small, just making all of Glory's plays just a lot worse, and towards the end there, even with a very bad start SamuelTsao had there, with a lot of the burn cards already, having to use both of the Savage or reactively to respond to both of the Giants. Still managed to take the win there, and very impressive performance by Token Druid.
Yeah, looking very, very strong, as we do have our results from the day ready to take a look at. A lot of very interesting matches, especially that last one at the air then. I'm still thinking about how Glory with like the Khadgar could have changed things, the Frostbolt, whatever. It's all in the past now. SamuelTsao is able to take the victory a lot quicker of a day compared to last day with all 2-1 victories yesterday. Patra picking up her first win is the big story for me. Really, really happy to see starting to show some of her prowess in Hearthstone Grandmasters.
Yes, and yeah, just a pretty overall different performance. Like a lot of decks that performed today, I feel. We have the Token Druid getting a win. We have the Mech Hunter from Chauncey getting a win, and Rogue getting some wins naturally because there's a lot of rogues.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a. I feel like the groups are kind of starting to seal up now. We have in the B group that was looking very decided with both Dawn, Glory on 7-2 and Alutemu. Oh no, Alutemu. It was Shaxi. Shaxi on 8-1. Was looking pretty decided, but all of the top 3 players took losses today.
That's true.
Which makes both Tyler and Blood Trail's position look a bit better.
Big shake-up here in Division B, but for me, the story is Division A. Look at all those players at 5-5 now. Rivius in 6th place, I guess, on tiebreakers, I guess, at this point. It gets a bit complicated, but basically all of these players are in with a chance of advancing through to that top 3 playoff spot. So I am very, very excited to see in the future weeks how any of those players
look at the
go
symmetry there. We have the 2-8, 8-2, 4-6, 6-4, 5-5-5-5-5-5-5. Perfect.
You love to see that.
It's almost. It would be a slightly better if it was entirely 5-5.
Yes.
That would be perfect.
I mean, in terms of symmetry, yes. In terms of entertaining Hearthstone, no.
But it's as entertaining as it could be. Everyone has a shot.
Fair enough. It also means it's entirely decided by tiebreakers, which sucks.
Yes, fair.
Yeah.
You have a point here, Derek.
I do indeed. But that does mean that we're pretty much done here in Asia Pacific for this week. You're done casting with us, Casper. You're finally free. How does it feel to be rid of me?
It feels good, but at the same time, it was very fun casting this week, and I got pretty tired, not gonna lie. Casting is a very difficult thing, and it's way different from playing. You're always on the camera, and you're always talking, so it's very different from the normal playing experience I'm used to. So it's a very cool experience, and I've enjoyed my time here with you, Derek, and I feel like you've helped me through a lot of the things that would be harder with any other caster.
Oh, stop it. You're going to make me cry, Casper. As we got the all clear now, I'm done for the day. You, however, my friend, are not. We have Europe coming up next, and the first match over there, I believe, is going to be Hunter-Ace versus Swids. How are you feeling going into that matchup?
I'm feeling okay. Actually, a bit less tired than I was yesterday, even though we had more games today, because I felt like I got a bit more sleep. So I'm feeling okay. I'm not feeling like 100% or anything. It's not like I've been preparing for the matchup a lot now. I've just been watching and commentating games. So I'm a bit tired still, and hopefully it'll pan out for me.
There you have it. Hunter-Ace is very excited to play some Hearthstone and is going to play 10 out of 10 in his game up against Swids, which is coming up next in Europe. Thank you so much for watching us over the weekend. Thank you so much for joining me on the casting desk, Casper. And we are going to be seeing you next week for more Asia Pacific action. But right now, we're sending you over for Europe. Enjoy.